so the agenda for today is where it all began. So I'm going to give you a little bit of my background, okay? I'm going to go through and explain the vestibular system, which is the balance system, okay? But I'll explain all of that. The vestibular system are 5 senses and the neural connections, okay? Then we're going to discuss what happens, what impact does it have on the child in the classroom if these senses are underdeveloped. How do we at Performance Breakthrough correct these issues? How can you help us to help the child, their parents, and you, yourselves as teachers, or for you to be able to help other teachers that you know? And then we'll have a question and answer session at the end. Okay. So, so where it all began. Just to give you a wee bit of background on where I'm coming from. Okay. So I was working in corporate finance when I started to struggle with the challenges that my children were facing in school, and I knew I needed to find some way of unlocking their potential. I found a balance and coordination exercise program which we worked on together at home, and the progress that they made inspired me to leave my job, leave my career after 26 years, and to start my own company providing the program for other parents. We now, as a company, work with clients with using hand-eye coordination and balance exercises to create new neural pathways and to enhance and, if you like, repair, if you strengthen the existing neural pathways that the child has. Following a free consultation, we begin a 12-month program using a specially designed balance board and specific exercises. And we give full support for 12 months, okay, which is pretty unique out there, I think. There's nobody else providing 12 months of support for parents. After 1 week, we're in touch with the parents. After 3 weeks, and then every 6 weeks, we're on a Zoom call with the parents, okay? It's just to give you a bit of background as to how we work with families. The changes are real, they're measurable, they're backed up by science, and you can refer to our research page on the website. There's a lot of pieces there. And it basically helps our clients, the parents and the children, to live happier, less chaotic lives. Okay, so then my own two sons did this program. John, my eldest, who's now 25, he'd struggled with low concentration. He had a lack of consequences, and quite frankly, he was never out of the headmaster's office, and me with him. Having completed the program 13 years ago, I am delighted to say that he now works with me. He has a profound empathy for the children and the parents who come to us, because he was that child. He knows what it was like to sit in that classroom and not be able to conform. My youngest, Peter, now 23, he was dyslexic. He had at 10 and a half years of age, he had an IQ of 121. He had the spelling age of a 7-year-old. Reading and comprehension was 2 years behind, and he could not write a sentence in P6. A year after whenever we finished the program, I took him back to the psychologist again and got him tested again, and his reading, all his scores had come up to his chronological age, and spelling was just 8 months behind. So all that intelligence was in there, but he was not able to prove it before he did the program. He is now a surveyor for NIE. And he passed his HNC with a distinction, without any extra help. And I am very, very proud of my two boys, I must say, for what they went through. So, where it all began, where the program began, I did not write the program, I didn't put the program together. A better mind than me did, and it was Dr. Frank Belgau, who I went and trained with in Seattle. He had spent 40 years of his life creating the perfect set of exercises to overcome the challenges that children face, whether it be in the classroom or at home, generally in life. It all began for him when he was teaching himself. He was teaching a class of children near to NASA, and some of the kids, their fathers were NASA scientists. So at one of the parents' days, he mentioned to one of the parents that he'd noticed that as much as his child had difficulty concentrating or reading, he also noticed that he was very uncoordinated in his movements, in his body. And the NASA scientist said to him, yeah, do you know, this is back in the 1960s, by the way. He says, yeah, he says, we are actually researching into weightless flight at the minute, and we found that if an astronaut's vestibular system, now Dr. Belguy didn't know what the vestibular was, right, but he went on regardless. He says, if the vestibular system is underdeveloped, an astronaut is going to have difficulty performing precision tasks while he is weightless. Okay, so NASA was basically saying that if your body is not in balance, your mind cannot work effectively. So Dr. Belguy started researching what is this vestibular system and found it was the sense of balance. Okay, and we're going to come on to that in more detail now in a minute. But he started working with children on balance boards and with beanbags. And he listened while reading became more fluent, and he watched as writing became more legible. You may have noticed yourselves as teachers or as parents that the child who doesn't want to take part in PE or has difficulty taking part in PE maybe has difficulty in the classroom with processing information or maybe even socially. So we're going to play you a video, okay? It's 7 minutes long.
So why do we use balance? We use balance because when we are 5 months in development in the womb as a baby, we develop our sight, our hearing, our taste, touch and smell. But before all of those senses are developed, we develop what's called our vestibular or balance system. It's a foundational sense. So if there is an underdevelopment in the vestibular system at that time, there is going to be a problem with the connections up the line. That could be this connection, where that would be the visual and words would jump about on the page. But many people who come to us, that's not happening. The words are staying still, but it's the next connection to it. They're having to read it 3, 4, 5 times before they can actually go, okay, I've got that. But then they're exhausted and realising they have to then answer questions. Then you can have fussy eating, easily distracted, can't get to sleep at night, maybe difficulties in sport, spatial awareness, timing, rhythm. It really just depends on which of these connections that are affected as to which symptoms or traits a child or adult will display. Coming then to this picture, these are neurons and neural pathways. They are not that size and they are not that colour. In fact, within a size of a grain, 1 grain of sand, there are 1 million of these all trying to work together. So you can imagine how many grains of sand you would fit into the size of a brain. Most of them are working perfectly because they are connected. You can see that this line is connected, it's joined. So this is anything that you're good at. A lot of children would come to us and they're maybe not great at literacy, but they're wonderful at maths. They're genius at maths, in fact. Or they're great at remembering where they were when they were 4 years of age. So that's all on that line. It doesn't drain them of energy whenever something is on that line because it is quite simply connected. Anything that is on a line like this, and this could be spellings, it could be instructions. Take spellings for instance. You learn your spellings Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You memorise them for the Friday test because you're smart enough to memorise them. And you probably get 9 or 10 out of 10. But by the following week, you go to write a sentence with those words, and those words are no longer there. They have literally fallen out. So it's like information going in one ear and out the other. So we need to be able to join these pathways so that we get a strong connection just like this one. So that literacy, spellings, reading, comprehension no longer drains the whole system. So how do we do it? Well, we use a number of different pieces of apparatus, one of them being a beanbag. And of course, we're on a balance board. And that goes right back to the foundational sense that we are on a balance board in order to develop what was underdeveloped in the first place. To help all the other senses then integrate, we work with, on the first day, a beanbag. And it can look very simple, and how easy is it to throw a beanbag? But it's actually very difficult to throw it in the way in which we need you to throw it. A lot of children who are a bit on the maybe stubborn side will clamp their arms and everything will become very, very tight in their physical. If they're tight in their physical, then they're tight and rigid in their thought processes, because anything that's happening in the physical is having a direct impact on what's happening in their brain. So we teach them to throw a beanbag in a go with the flow attitude, in a relaxed way in their shoulders. We're also asking them in the first exercise to hold their head still and watch the beanbag with their eyes. That's very difficult. A lot of people, adults and all, will get on this balance board, throw a beanbag and go the exact opposite way. And they find it very hard to track. If you can't focus and track in the physical, you can't concentrate in the mental. So what this is actually doing is connecting the eyes to the concentration. Therefore a child can concentrate in the classroom. So we're working with beanbag, we work with a pendulum ball. A pendulum is used because a pendulum will always swing as much one way as it does the other. That's natural timing and rhythm, it's physics at the end of the day. We're working with fine motor skills, fingertips. We're working with gross motor skills and proprioceptor, the elbow. We're working with the back of the wrist. We're working indeed with the head. And all the time the child is watching that ball in flight. We're hitting it with our hands, and there's your hand-eye coordination. That can be for sport, it can be for handwriting, etc. We then move on to the motor control stick, which has numbers, as you can see, and we're hitting the ball in different angles and trying to keep ourselves on this balance board and not fall off. And again, as you can see, I am tracking that ball all the time with my eyes. So if you can imagine, there are a lot of lights. If we had the child wired up, we would see a lot of lights being lit and a lot of connections being made just within the same session on the balance board. Finally, we have our bouncy ball, and we're throwing with one hand, catching with the other. We eventually have them doing 2 balls at the same time, counting numbers, multiplying numbers, and again you can see how many lights are being lit just within one session all day. Most importantly, of all of our senses, 85% of what we take in is through our eyes. And as I said earlier, I touched on it with the beanbag exercise. If we can't focus and track, we can't concentrate. But there's so much more. It's friendships, it's everything. It's sitting with a group of other people and being able to judge when to speak, when to say what, when to be able to find the gap in speech that you can get what you want to say in. And it's reading other people's faces that maybe you're talking too much, and you realise, okay, I better not say anymore, I'll just keep quiet now. Everything is processed through the eyes, okay? So what we do is we work with an eye exercise. Part of the eye exercise is just, and you can do this with your child at home, even off the balance board, and see whether or not they can actually track something in space. There's more to it than that, but even if you tried that at home, if they are looking at that and then their eyes are off, and you have to ask them to look at it again and bring their eyes back in, then they are having trouble focusing, and therefore no doubt having trouble perhaps concentrating or reading or getting what they want, what they know they want to write on their head, getting it down on paper.